belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. We are nothing more than caretakers. However, for some reason, we like money. No. We love money. No. We lustfully desire money. We are infatuated with money. Our thoughts and our dreams are all about money. That Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. That you love money. حُبًّا جَمًّا. حُبًّا جَمًّا is not just any love. You know, when someone tells you, I don't love money, I'll tell them the Quran says contrary to what you say. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. You have an immense love for money. The most coveted things in this world are power and wealth. The most fought over things in this world are power and wealth. Wars, you know, when they say wars are because of religion, no. Wars are for power and wealth. They're for positions, therefore being able to control. Even to discuss money is fun. You know, sometimes you're sitting with your friends and you start talking about, you know, how rich this person is. Have you seen this guy's super yacht? Have you seen this guy's sports car? Have you seen this guy's mansion? And in fact, the conversation digresses to, what would you do if you won the lottery? What would you do if you had this much money? And each person starts talking about how they would spend this imaginary money. This is what happens when we discuss this. And power and wealth, they're a married couple. They go hand in hand. Have you ever heard of a poor politician? Every politician's rich. Whether in our countries, where they are, whether you look in our countries where our politicians, homelands I mean, where our politicians control the money, or in the capitalist societies like this country that we live in, where what? Where the politicians are advocates or representatives of the major corporations. If you notice, when one set of government comes in, they represent one part of corporations, and then the other ones campaign so they can get their advocate or their representative in. But why has wealth magnetized mankind? Why do we feel this pull towards wealth? What's the reason? What's the reason behind this? Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says in a narration, Al-malu maddatu shahawat. In this narration, he says that wealth is what? He says it's an article, it's a commodity of passion. That everything that I desire, I need money. You know, as they say, money makes the world go round. You know, this is what happens in the world. Just recently, Lionel Messi went from France to Saudi Arabia without permission. What could take him there? Did he go to do a Umrah? No, recently. Did he go to do a Umrah? No. Did he go to get his hotels booked for his Hajj? No. There's a possibility that he's going to join a football club, a second football club, so they can eventually have all the best players there. What would take them there? Money. What would make you go there? What would that makes people go to MLS? Why would they want to play in a country that doesn't even call it football, calls it soccer? That's not even recognized. Money. Money is what pushes you in this direction and makes you like this. People are in pursuit of money because they're in the pursuit of happiness. They think, if I get money, I'll be happy. If I get money, anything in life can be arranged with money. I can get whatever I want. With money I can buy a house. With money I can buy a car. With money I can buy a business. With money I can get label clothing. You know, or I can get those designer purses. You know, something I really laugh about, just a segue, is sometimes you see someone with a designer purse or designer bag that they paid $3,000-4,000, but everyone looks at it and thinks it's a fake for $200. So they paid the money, yet no one recognizes it for what it's worth. But all this stuff I can get with money. Money can get you a wife. People say, how? Go and ask for someone's hand. I fear God, I'm religious. Wrong answer. You showed the door. You're moved away. Why? Show them how many zeros you got on your bank account. Well, why didn't you say that from the start? You're a cocaine addict? That's okay. You gamble? Tomorrow you become ahla sahla. Our daughter's yours. This is what happens now. This is how the world is arranged. If you got a fat wallet, you'll get married. Now, I need to understand another narration here. It says, فَالْمَالُ لَا يَبْقَى لَكَ وَلَا تَبْقَى لَهُ. The wealth doesn't remain for you, nor will you remain for your wealth. Even you remember the terracotta army they found with one of the Chinese, the Malaysian, was it, or Chinese? Malaysia originally Chinese anyway. So, but if you look over there, that terracotta army with the dynasty that ruled, he had how many? I think 11,000. I don't know how many soldiers. Terracotta soldiers are about 5 foot tall, made out of terracotta. Why? He said these soldiers will protect him in the underworld, the world that he's going to be sent to. So people used to take their money. Even the pharaohs used to bury their treasures with them in the tombs until they leave it there. They think they'd stay there until grave robbers took them, or the grave robbers, British archaeologists, would take their wealth and run off with it. But they thought that this wealth will remain. Nothing remains for you, nor do you remain for anything. How often do you see someone die and their parents, like for example, leave inheritance for a family, and they all say, all right, let's preserve our parents' house. No, everyone says, where's my earth? What's my share? No one says, let's just leave everything preserved. Let's leave the car how it is. Let's leave the house how it is. Let's leave the land that they had as it is. Everyone wants to take their share. People feel secure when they have money, but it's a false security. Why? In an instant, it can all go. How many people, imagine right now, in Lebanon's a beautiful example. How many people were getting their money and putting it in the bank, and they were offering them like a ridiculous amount of interest? I don't know, I don't want to use any hyperbole, but they were getting offered between 12 and 20% interest on their bank account if they left their money in Lebanese liras. And honestly, this has got the smell of trap all over it. You know, could you imagine? When have you ever seen interest rates for home loans are lower than interest rates for savings accounts? Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever seen like interest rates for home loans are at 7%, but if you put your money in a term deposit, it's at 20%? Doesn't happen, because then it'll be at a loss. People will say, why should I invest in a house? I'll just put it all in the bank rather than pay the bank back. I'll get money from the bank. Isn't that right? So in Lebanon, they put all their money in there because they have this false sense of security. People have that. Why do you think people fall to Ponzi schemes all the time? Someone comes out of nowhere and says, listen, I've got an investment. You put your money with me and you'll get returned tenfold. Everyone goes, puts their money with them, and before you know it, you have a case like Azzuddin, rips off everyone, and everyone says, what happened to my money? To have this false sense of security when I trust money, that I should not have any trust for this whatsoever. Now the thing is, about money, is it bad for me to want to be rich? It's not bad to want to be rich or be poor. You're supposed to deal with the situation you're given. Even when we read Dua Abi Hamza al-Thamali in Shahr Ramadan al-Mubarak, at the end of the dua, what do we say? وَرَضِّنِي مِنَ الْعَيْشِ بِمَا قَسَمْتَ لِي. Make me pleased with whatever you've given me. Am I rich? Alhamdulillah. Am I poor? Alhamdulillah. Regardless of the situation and how I end up, I should be happy. Now the thing is, because people see money is everything, and they're willing to do anything to acquire money. Anything at all. No matter what happens, they want to acquire this money. And they're willing to acquire this money at all costs. Now, results in this world have many roads. There's many ways for you to get a result in this world. But results in the hereafter have only one road. Allah Azza wa Jal makes us read in our prayers over and over and over again, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Guide us upon this one upright path. Not many roads leading to Rome. We're not people that have pluralistic ideas where every religion takes you to God. No. Only one road takes you to God. And with the results you get in this world, there's many ways to get a result in this world. But for the hereafter, there's only one way. So it's not about what money I have, it's how I acquired this money. There's people that are indifferent to the concept of punishment. They're indifferent to the concept of punishment and reward. They'll find many excuses for the means of the achievements of their objectives. They'll do anything to achieve an objective, regardless of how they get there. Oh, for example, someone wants to get married. They'll sit and flirt, thinking, alhamdulillah, my intention is to get married. It's haram. That's not the way for you to get married. This isn't the way for you to head in that direction. And likewise, when it comes to the acquisition of money, halal remains halal and haram remains haram. I remember one of the brothers was telling us that in one of the South American nations, I'm not going to pinpoint which nation it is, but they got a rock singer to do a concert, and from the money they made, they built a Husainiyah. I'm serious. They built a Husainiyah from the money they made from a rock concert. This is what we're talking about. Trying to achieve something in an incorrect manner. This will take us to the story of, and this story you hear over and over again. Do you know whenever a story is repeated often, there's a purpose for it? Whenever you hear a story, you know one of the stories you hear a lot, the one about the Prophet and his Jewish neighbor. The story you hear a lot is about Imam Hassan and Hussein alayhim as-salam, how they taught the man how to do wudu. You hear these stories over again because they all have a meaning, and this is one of those stories. Where Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam saw a man, and he saw this man steal 2 loaves of bread, and steal 2 pomegranates, rummen. Then he took them and he gave them to poor people. So the Imam said to him, what are you doing? And then he said to the Imam, learn from me. He says, the Quran says, من جاء بالحسن فله عشر أمثالها. Whoever does a good deed gets 10 rewards. So every good deed you get 10 rewards. ومن جاء بالسيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثلها. And whoever commits a sin only gets 1 punishment. This is God's mercy. If you do a good deed, you get 10 rewards. If you do a bad deed, you do a sin, you get 1 punishment. So he said 40 good deeds, because 4 good deeds times 10, 40 good deeds, I get 40 rewards, and I've given out 2 loaves of bread and 2 pomegranates. That's 4 sins, that's 4 punishment. 40 minus 4 is 36. The Imam said, firstly, you stole 2 loaves of bread and 2 pomegranates. Secondly, you sarrafat fihum, you gave them without permission of the owner. That's 8, and your math is wrong to begin with. You've got 8 sins there. To begin with, you've made a mistake. And then he said, have you not heard the verse? إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah only accepts from the one that guards from evil. You know when they talk about Pablo Escobar, They talk about him like he was a good man. Did you know he used to help the fuqara? Or they talk about a drug dealer in their community. This guy was good to the community. Allah yal'anu yal'an bihabbu. Let me tell you exactly what I'm talking about. Pablo Escobar and these types of people, go look at how many lives they destroy. You think these people that destroy communities, destroy lives, and no one gets angry until someone ODs in their family. When someone overdoses in their family, and then they start cursing them. But until then, they won't say nothing. In this case, when we take a look at this, these people, doesn't matter what they do, it's valueless. Bisalli, valueless. He prays, valueless. He fasts, valueless. Allah accepts from the one that guards from evil. It's not someone that sits and commits whatever sin he wants and then changes his mind. So in other words, you do not have all those rewards because Allah does not accept. Except from who? Allah accepts from who? The ones that do good. The ones that do good actions. The ones, no. Allah accepts from those that guard from evil. Imagine, you ever seen someone when they build up a car? Have you ever noticed when you buy a car, some people, they'll say, all right, I'm going to get Gemini and I'm going to drop a big block in there. Well, you guys wouldn't know what a big block is. That's old days. Okay, if you're going to get a Gemini and drop a supermotor in there, you think you could do that? What would happen? When you change the running gear and you change the motor, you have to also change, because you're changing the acceleration, you have to also improve the retardation of the car. The braking system of the car has to improve. That's why when you see a sports car, have you seen the size of the calipers they have? Their brakes are bigger, because it's not only important on how fast the car accelerates, what's more important is how fast it slows down. You know, we've got a habit when we look at the statistics of a car, we see 0 to 100 in 3 seconds, we get excited. That's not the big deal. When you see a car that goes from 100 back to 0 in, say, 1 second, that's the big deal. How fast can you make this car slow down? If I don't have a braking system and I'm all lights are green, all engines are go, I keep going, all right, how do I brake now? How do I stop? This is what abstinence from sin is on this part. And this is what a muttaqi is, someone that abstains and guards themselves from evil. So people ask, all right, what is the type of money that would be considered as dirty money? What's dirty money? What's haram money? What kind of money do I consider haram money? Any money that comes from a forbidden source or something that's not acceptable. You know, people come in, for example, and say, I work as a bouncer at a nightclub. I tell them, before I give you the answer, you're going to answer the question yourself. I said, what do you do there? Do they get stumped for words? But, you know, I wear a tux. What do you do there? What you do is you provide a service for people that are coming to disobey God. And this place is a place that's licensed for sin. Did you know which city in the world is called Sin City? Who knows? Las Vegas. There's iftikhar. They're proud that their city is called Sin City. The city of disobedience. Sin City. Because that's all that happens there. That's why they also have another saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Why? Because all you're going to do there is sin. I want to work as a security for this place without even getting the answer. You should know for yourself. Then they'll tell you, oh, but I do the valet, you're still indirectly working with this place. A lot of people go work without even asking about halal and haram. Once I got my students, I used to get them to whatever job they're doing, I tell them, I want you to write for me what is not permissible in your work. And they get shocked. You get a lot of, for example, Barbers. If anyone's a barber, bad luck. If you haven't studied, it's good for you to study now. That they cut hair for women. A male barber cutting hair for women. That money that you earn is haram. That money is haram income. You cut hair for women, it's haram income. They're going to sit there and tell you, oh, but I don't do this. Listen, I think when someone cuts your hair, it's very intimate. Even when you got no hair. They're on you. They're touching you. Their hands are next to you. I've never seen someone wear any gloves of any sort when they're cutting hair. Even to the point people go get their bodily hair removed from other people. And they tell you, a female will say, I'm getting a female to do it. It's haram. If it's in private parts, it's haram. What makes it halal on her? A male says, yeah. What if this, what if that? It's not an emergency. It's not something that is necessary for me to do. That kind of money that's earned is haram. And then people when we say haram money, people think it's limited to drugs. Obviously, selling drugs, marijuana is a drug, and yes, the income you make from marijuana is also haram. I've got a lot of people, they self-prescribe themselves. This is one of the biggest pandemics right now, is people that tell you that I need to get medicated marijuana. Well, doctors will even medicate whiskey for you or wine, that. They'll tell you they'll recommend wine and whiskey. So do I go drink wine and whiskey as well? Whatever the doctor says and whatever I hear suddenly becomes permissible. A lot of people will sit there and give their own opinion. Go find me a faqih, a fatwi from the fuqaha, the maraja, and don't find me some random marja that no one's ever heard of that gives you permission to follow another marja. I'm talking about maraja that are known. Go get me a name of a marja that's known, a mu'tabar in the hawza, and the ulama know who it is, that permits for you to smoke marijuana. Find me one. Go find me the fatwa. Instead, people write the fatwa themselves. They say they don't want to listen. So for me to earn money from that is haram. For me to earn money from the sale of alcohol is forbidden. In fact, alcohol is the worst when it comes to this. Any form. You could be, for example, you work for a shop and you need to make a delivery. And they say, can you take this case with you? Can't touch it. Can't even lift it for you. Actually, I was at a holiday house with my kids, and they put me a complimentary bottle of champagne or something, because it was a wine country. So I said to my son, you're about to learn a lesson. And what you do if someone gives you a bottle of wine. It's there. What do you do? So a lot of people think, all right, I'll go give it to my neighbor. He might drink. It's a good gesture. And there some people say, all right, I'm going to go spill it. What if you spill it and we najis halak? So we went out into the shopping center. I found one of those bins where no one can extract from, and I put it in there. It gets thrown out. That's it. You don't give it to anybody. You don't trade with it. You don't gift it. Maybe this guy drinks, I'll give him. No. It disappears. You destroy it. Make sure it's gone. There's nowhere someone can find it. You don't want anything to do with that bottle of wine coming back to you. So I need to dispose of it in any way. Even any other things. There's things like people will go work at a shop that sells pork. It's another thing. A lot of youth will go work at a place. You're not allowed to sell pork. So if I'm, for example, working at a takeaway, you tell the people, say I'm going to be working at a McDonald's or something. You got to be careful where. You're not allowed to sell haram meat to a Muslim. So if I'm selling a Big Mac and a person comes to the counter and says, can I have this? And his name's Muhammad or something, he's a Muslim, you can't sell that to him. It's haram. So you're stuck there. Why would I put myself in such a predicament? There's a million takeaways for our community you can work with. You say, oh, hold on, Macca's going to pay me more or treat me better. It doesn't matter. It's about earning the halal dollar. Buying stolen products is haram. Anything from a forbidden source. Interest. If I loan someone, sometimes you see people, they loan each other money. When I was younger, this man goes, I will give you sorry, lend me $5,000 and I'll give you $500 as a gift after 1 week. Okay, that's interest, that's haram. For you to even say it's haram. Obviously, if I lend you 5,000 and you return 5,000 and say this is a gift and there was no condition, that becomes a different story. But you can't say nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It's got to be something that just happens like that. But if there is interest involved, that money you take is forbidden. Obviously, with the rulings with banks, is another story and another discussion altogether. So what do I do if I have dirty money? So I want to change my life. Say I've been earning a dishonest living, because it's a big issue. One man was weeping and asking God to forgive him. And Nabi Musa alayhi salam asked Allah, "Oh Allah, will you forgive this man? Will you forgive this man that weeps?" And Allah said no. He said, if this man weeps until his back gets bent in worship, until his tears, and he says all these examples, until all the way until he dies from weeping, I will not forgive him. And Musa says, why? Why even to this extent you will not forgive him? He says, لأن في بطنه حرام وعلى ظهره حرام وفي بيته حرام. What he consumes is haram. This doesn't necessarily mean food. This even means what I'm consuming with the money I use is haram. What he wears is haram. The clothes he's wearing is haram. And then he says, وَفِي بَيْتِهِ, meaning even the woman he is married to is in haram. People don't ask questions. One guy last year or the year before, he called me. I was back in, it was a few years ago. He called me, he said to me, my wife, listen to this, is someone else's wife. Listen to this. He said, my wife is someone else's wife. I said, what do you mean? He said, I was married to this woman. This is funny, but it's true. He said, I was married to this woman. During the marriage, a guy knocks on the door and said, you're married to my wife. And I find out, Fa'lan, this guy is not even divorced. And he said, why didn't you tell me? She said he wasn't going to give me a divorce. He told me, what do I do? I said, she goes back to her husband. She'll sleep, that's it. Your aqd's batil. But look at this. Another person might have said, no, you know, I'm happy with this deal, and tell the other person to leave. My aqd's shari. No. Comes to this, I have to take a stance. So what do I do when everything is wrong? There was a man called Abu Basir. Abu Basir are plenty. There's a lot of Abu Basirs. It's not always the same guy. I remember once when I was young, I was saying to my father that, Allah yarham, I was telling him that Abu Basir narrated this Imam al-Sadiq, and I was about 19. You know, when you're 19, you think you're a scholar. So I said, and he said, which one? And I said, what do you mean, which one? So then he showed me this book he had on Ilm al-Rijal. I was looking through it, and there was like about 10 or 11 Abu Basirs at the time, Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq, numbers, and I said, hold on. So when you hear a story, it's not necessarily the same guy you hear every time. So this Abu Basir, and this is mentioned in Kitab al-Kafi, this narration, he said he had a neighbor, and his neighbor was a bit of a thug, a gangster for the government. You know, one of these guys that collects money, and because he does favors for the government, he lives it up. He has money, and he's a socialite. When we say he's a socialite, someone that has parties all the time. You know, his house is always pumping. There's always music. There's always, when we say music back then, they bring dancing girls, and he's a bit of an elbow bender. He's always on the terps. So he's always drinking the whole time. And Abu Basir gets irritated with this guy. This guy's partying every night. So one day Abu Basir comes and says, listen, can you cut me some slack every night? you're doing this, can you stop? And the women that come and all this stuff, this is irritating me. So this man says to him to go. But then Abu Basir becomes persistent. He insists that you got to change. So the man says to him, Ya hada ana rajulun mubtala wa anta rajulun mu'afa. I'm a person, someone when they use drugs, but like, I'm mubtali. What do you want me? Sometimes someone has a problem, they're an addict. And they say, what do you want me to do? I'm stuck. Like, when someone's smoking, or I'm not saying that smoking is haram, but I'm saying when someone's smoking, and you think, khalas, abtalit, what do you want me to do? Now, if I've got a habit, you say, khalas, abtalit, we tend to do that. That's okay. But if it's something haram, if you say, I'm a gambler, I can't help it. He said, khalas, I'm like this. And you're someone you're not suffering from what I suffer. I have to do this. They start making, because we like to, when we do something wrong, one of the best things we do is we like to justify it. If you get angry at your wife, you made me angry. No, she didn't. She didn't make you angry. You got anger issues. No one makes you angry. You've got anger issues. When someone does something, they're the one with the issue, not the other person. So don't go around blaming people, but we like to blame others. You made me do this. Don't make me do it again. And the people say, listen, and this is one thing that people that are addicted to things use as an excuse. When that happens, I have to do this, because this is what brings me to the dark place that I was at. So he said, this is where I am. And you are someone that doesn't have this problem. And then he says, فَلَوْ عَرَضْتَنِي لِصَاحِبِكَ. And you, Abu Basir, was a companion of Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, فَلَوْ عَرَضْتَنِي لِصَاحِبِكَ رَجَوْتُ أَنْ يُنْقِذَنِ اللَّهُ بِكَ. He wants him basically to tell his case to the Imam. Maybe you could be the way out. This is why it's good to be persistent. If you have someone that does wrong, if you're someone that they listen to, but just tell them, keep talking to them, remind them of the day of judgment, because one day it hits home. I'm not talking about some random in the street that will punch you in the face if you tell him. I'm talking about someone that at least will give and take with you. Because in this case, you could see eventually he hit home. So then Abu Basir went to see Imam As-Sadiq. Abu Basir was living in Kufa. You know where Kufa is. All those that have visited Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in Najaf. It's in the south of Iraq. Not the full south, but the south section. Because if you call a Najafi a Janubi, he gets offended for some reason. I don't know why. But if you go down to that region where the Kufa is, Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam is further south. He's living at the time in Medina al-Munawwara. So it's a long trek. It's a very long journey. So eventually when Abu Basir goes to Medina and visits the Imam he tells the Imam the story of his friend. His friend has got he's got dirty money, he earns a dirty livelihood, he lives in such a bad way. How can we fix his case? Because someone is like waist deep in a haram life. Imagine one day you're sitting down, your house, you bought it with drug money. Your car, you bought it with drug money. You've been stealing from people all your life. How do you change? So the Imam says, إِذَا رَجَعْتَ إِلَى الْكُوفَةِ. When you return to the Kufa, he says, سَيَأْتِيكَ فَقُلْ لَهُ يقول لك جعفر بن محمد دع ما أنت عليه وأضمن لك على الله الجنة. He said, when you see him, he will come to you. He will visit you. The Imam's actually telling him, he'll come and visit you. And when he does, tell him to leave completely what you have. In other words, everything that you have, leave it. And he says, and I will promise you, Allah. And the Imam is Hujjatullah ala al-Khalq, is God's representative. In other words, the Imam says, I will guarantee paradise for you. When Abu Basir returned and everyone came to visit him, And you know when people visit you and they're great in number, Abu Basir didn't want to embarrass his friend in front of everybody. After they all left and this man remained, he told him about what the Imam said. So the man began to weep. And then he said to him, Allahi, هذا ما قالوا لك? Is this really what he said to you? Muhammad Sadiq alayhi salam is not talking to this man, he's talking to everyone. Anyone that's in this position, anyone that's in this state where I have something that's haram, the door's still open. That the door is still open for me to turn back and go towards paradise. The door hasn't closed on me. Anything that I have that's wrong, I can always turn back. And the man said yes. And he swore to God that is what the Imam said. He said, then the man disappeared. Abu Basir said the man disappeared. Let's go. He said, days passed, time passed, and he sent someone to call me. Abu Basir went to the man's house. He knocked on the door, and the man said, I can't let you in. He said, why? He said, I have no clothing. Now, you know when they say ari can sometimes mean that they're completely naked. Or ari means that I don't have appropriate clothing to answer the door. You know, we can't say that to people these days because they go in their undergarments to pick up their kids from school. So they wouldn't understand what we mean when we say inappropriate. So he comes in and Abu Basir goes and sees his friends and collects items of clothing from them to give him. He said, where is all your clothes? Where is everything? He said, everything I had, everything I have was haram. I got rid of everything. I left nothing. Not even the clothes on my back. So Abu Basir left. Time passed. Abu Basir went to visit him again because he was sent for, that he was sick. When he arrived, he told him, I don't have long to go. I'm sick. So Abu Basir looked after him. He stayed by his side. And when he was by his side the whole time, he said there were moments where he could see that, you know, I don't know if you ever sat next to someone that's going to die. You can feel it's their last moments. لحظة الاحتضار. Ihtidar, it's called the moment of attendance. Death. You feel death is in presence. You feel the ambience of death. It's there. He says, Ughshi alayh. Then what happened is he passed out and then he came to. Then he said to me, he looked towards Abu Basir and he said, Ya Aba Basir, قد وفى لنا صاحبك. He said, oh, Abu Basir, your friend, Imam Sadiq, has kept his promise. And he dies. He saw paradise before he died. Abu Basir said, the moment he said this to me, I began to prepare myself to leave. I wanted to go see Imam Sadiq alayhi salam to tell him the news. He said, I traveled until I got to Medina. When I arrived in Medina, he said, I had 1 foot in the doorstep of Ja'far ibn Muhammad and 1 foot outside. Before I could even say a word, Imam Sadiq said, Ya Aba Basir, قد وفينا لصاحبك. Oh, he's coming to give the news to the one that knows the news. He says, oh, Abu Basir, we've kept our promise to your friend. This is what I should be looking towards. I should be looking at what I earn is something that's halal and not something that's forbidden. Why do I need to wait till I die for all this to happen? Why? These people, you see a lot of people, they'll live a haram life and then with the dirty drug money, they'll buy something in their name overseas and they'll say, Al-Faqid, Al-Marhum. You know, I remember one guy that was involved in these things and they put him up as a shaheed. You see someone that's fighting for our rights and fighting for Islam, a shaheed. Al-Mujahid Fulan Fulan, then you see someone else is a Shaheed as well. You know, one died bil-Muqawami, the other one Amiqawim in the Shawara, in the streets. He's doing his own resistance in the streets, and suddenly he becomes a martyr too. This is the money that's going to be spent. They tell you, oh, we need to make up his prayers. I go, well, did he even know which direction was the Qibla? Why should I wait till this point? Why not now? Why not now fix my life? Whoever went. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still here for me to make a change. And this is it. Always consider this day and every day that you live to be your last. How do I make amends? We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make our death a death of piety, a death upon the path of Muhammad wa al Muhammad salawatullahi alayhim ajma'een. We ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan arwahuna fidah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وإلى أرواح موتانا جميعا ولقضاء الحوائج وقبول الأعمال وغفران الذنوب وتعجيل الفرج وحسن العاقبة. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.